Welcome back to another week of the RTF Show. It's playoff time, baby. Playoff time. I'm your host, Michael, here with Brother John. Brother John, two guys, not in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was
Just
gonna say it's not.
couple of,
It's over.
couple of dorks watching a fantasy football league that they're basically have no part in anymore.
Yeah. Uh, as far as I'm concerned, the NFL is it's the off season already. As a person out of the
Yep.
playoffs, as a Chicago sports fan in general,
Yep.
not much to root for at the moment.
No, not at
you know,
all.
did you see that stat that or fact, I guess, that besides the Bulls, every single professional head sports coach in Chicago has been fired since 2023. Besides the Bulls, I'm talking WNBA, baseball,
Yeah.
hockey, soccer.
The fire.
Yeah, like everyone's been. Yeah, it's been turnover city. Just Billy Donovan is the only guy that's left standing. So.
Oh, boy.
There's going to
That's
be no glory in Chicago in the foreseeable future.
the other stat that I saw this week in terms of Chicago sports, and then we'll move on from this, but just to reiterate the sad state of affairs, in the last 7 years of the kind of four major sports, right? Baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. How many playoff games do you think the combined Chicago teams, so they have 5 teams across the four major sports, how many playoff games do you think they've won in the last 7 years?
7 years.
Mhm.
Okay. That takes us back to 2017.
Mhm.
God, I don't think the Sox have won any. I don't think the Bears have won any in that time. I don't think, the Cubs maybe a few games in the post World Series
So
era. The Bulls, I feel like probably made four games.
4 is correct. That is the
Oh,
correct number of games. Actually, the White Sox have won 2 of those a couple of years ago
whoa!
when they were pretty good. The Blackhawks won 1, and the Bulls won 1. The Cubs have not won any. The Bears have not won any. Just to compare this to other kind of similarly
Insane.
sized major markets,
Yeah,
Boston in the last 7 years has won 133. Philly is 172, Toronto's 151, Denver's 194, Tampa Bay is 183, the Bay Area is 180, I already did Denver. Phoenix is 138. Atlanta's 138. What a fucking embarrassing city.
God, how do you get how is it so wrong across the board?
Ownership, but, alas, let's move on. All right. The league, the RTFL had an exciting week last week. So the playoffs really came down to kind of the end of the football week, in terms of figuring out who was going to be in or out of the playoffs. And unfortunately for Kelly, my prediction came correct again. Kelly was the odd woman out. Doug squeezing into the playoffs in his very first season in the league, alongside Fitz, who, I mean, those two teams, Doug and Fitz, while having predicted them, I don't know at the beginning of the season, I thought those were two teams that were going to make the playoffs. So more power to them. Congratulations.
No, I agree. And, kind of actually worked out pretty nicely having those two round out the playoffs. Not to, set aside Kelly or anything, but actually made for, two teams from each division making the playoffs, which was kind of interesting. Was that, it felt somewhat top heavy for sure with Jake and Steve, sort of leading their division, but kind of being like two of the more dominant teams there at 12-2 and 10-4. But it was so two teams from each division, so it's kind of a nice spread there. But yeah, that Monday night game, the Bengals and the Cowboys, did not think it would be as entertaining as it was, and a lot of fantasy relevant players playing, which was awesome to see, and it made for a pretty exciting night to watch the final outcome for the playoffs unfold.
It helped that it was a great game too, which helped. So I mean, I think, unfortunately for Kelly, I do think her division played a big role in it. I don't know if she was in any other division. And honestly, I'm trying to look up and I can't figure out for the life of me in Sleeper how to look up somebody else's schedule.
She went 2-6 in
the division. Her two wins were against me, correct?
Yeah, she got you in week 1 and then got you again in week 12.
Yeah.
And then lost to Jake and lost to
Steve twice.
But that week 2 she lost to Jake by 70 points. He put up 156 and she put up 83. And then she lost another pretty close game to Steve in week 3. 132 to 119 with no one on Steve's team putting up like crazy numbers, right? Like Rashid Rice had 25 points and Jamar Chase had a 28-point game, right? Which is, kind of what she ran into this past week against Steve, right? With Jamar Chase putting up 41 points, I think. So I think, she kind of caught Steve at a bad time on both things. Although in that first week 3, Kyron Williams and Derrick Henry both put up 31 points. So, or 30 points.
I mean,
she got unlucky a few times facing Steve, I would say.
Well, why don't we open? Why don't we share screen here and let's go ahead and take a quick look. So yeah, like you were saying, Kelly, she got unlucky within her division. I think the thing that, and I can't figure out how to do this, I figured it out in the app, but I can't figure out how to do it online. But Kelly, essentially, in weeks 11 and 12, I think those are the weeks, she played you in a game that she should have won and just had a down week, and you squeaked out a win. Because you should have been a playoff team. You squeaked out a win.
I should have been.
The same thing, I believe, happened the next week to Kelly. Sorry, maybe it was the week before. It was 10 and 11, where she lost to Peter. Other than those 2 weeks, Kelly really I mean, since that down game where she put up 82 points or something in week 2, she scored 100 and she scored over 100 points, but she scored almost over 120 points every week of the
Mhm.
season.
Oh yeah.
Except
Week five.
basically,
So week 6, she lost by 2 points to
yeah.
Fitz. That is brutal.
So I think, unfortunately for Kelly, it was a unlucky, um, unlucky season. She had, some of the highest points against in the league, which makes sense given that she was in the highest scoring division. So I think if you're Kelly, you got to look at that team, and she put together a good team. I don't know in terms of like keepable contracts for next year. We'll look at that in the off season. I'm not sure. Lamb's not going to be keepable at $61. Derrick Henry, I wouldn't imagine is going to be keepable, but $45 for Derrick Henry isn't bad.
Yeah, Kyron Williams 51. I mean, at this point, they might be keepable at
Keepable.
those
Yeah.
prices. They'll be cheaper than what's in the draft, probably.
Yeah, I would think so. So I like Kelly put together a great team. I think she got lucky in the division. It's tough.
When did she trade for Baker Mayfield? Because that was one of the things where we saw her lose some close matchups, like the Peter, and I know she had started Baker that week, which is a big bummer. He had a down week that week, right? So, she probably just sat Pat Mahomes. That's tough. She had been reading Pat Mahomes and then switched to Baker a few weeks before, I guess. Yeah, that's a tough.
Yeah.
Tough.
Well,
tough. I know that she had mentioned that if she had not traded for CeeDee Lamb and just kept playing her original players, that she would have won a few of those games, and
I'm sure
made the playoffs.
I'm sure she would have.
Yeah.
I mean, well, so unfortunate for Kelly. I was rooting for Kelly. I wanted 3 teams in my division to make the playoffs, but and for me to be the only person left out. But let's focus on some of the highs from last week. So Fitz and Doug make the playoffs. They squeeze in. The top tier is set already. Nothing changed. Ken takes the number 1 seed. Which, let's go to the playoff bracket here. Ken takes the number 1 seed. Jake takes the number 2 seed. They both have a bye week. And then in comes Alec in the number 3 seed.
Oh, yeah.
And Steve in the number 4. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve's
4,
4,
5,
yeah.
6. God, Sleeper's interface online is fucking terrible.
It sucks.
Anyway, so let's take a look at each of these matchups. We're going to make some predictions, not just about these matchups, but we're going to make some predictions for the rest of the playoffs. We'll fill out a bracket and kind of see where we're at. So, John, which one do you want to start with?
I mean, let's pay a little respect. Let's put some respect. Let's put some respect on Theo's dad, okay? Theo's dad's out there grinding. The guy's been grinding for years in this league. He has been making deals. He's been making moves, making deals, been grinding it out week after week, putting his time. And now, 2 weeks before the playoffs, drops 159 on the league, takes some highest score, and then follows it up with a absurd and appalling, insulting, disgusting 176 points this last week. Just absolute embarrassment of riches over there for Theo's dad. I won't even say his name, just Theo's dad. So let's start there. The man,
Okay.
the man is looking to feed his son, and he's going to do it off of some RTFL winnings.
All right. Let's take a look at Theo's dad versus Hoffman football team. So Alec did have somebody play in that monstrosity of a game last night, or Thursday night, in which nothing but field goals were kicked, and I would imagine many people's fantasy seasons were ruined by the likes of Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings and all sorts of Brock Purdy. I can't forget to mention Brock Purdy, who put up 4 points. But Alec came out, I think, relatively unscathed for having played a pass catcher in that game. Alec played George Kittle, 8 points in a monsoon, not bad. I think, George Kittle has been unbelievable this year. And I mean, the 8 points, you're hoping for something more, but in a game like that, I'm not sure how much more you can actually expect. So I'd be happy if I were Alec coming out of that game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, when watching some of that game, I didn't watch all of it. It was terrible. Those 3 misses, on Kittle, I saw at least one of them, and just bad balls by Purdy, right? Like, just terrible. And so for Kittle to walk away with 4 receptions, 61 yards, not the worst, right?
No.
So 15 yards per catch. It was okay. 8 points is fine. It's fine.
For sure.
That position, if it's not going to lose him the week to get 8 points, right?
No.
On the other side across from it, he's playing, McBride, who has been very good the last 3 weeks.
I mean, McBride's been great the whole year.
But I'm saying, like, he's been kind of on a heater. He's been the guy, plenty of targets, but there might be a position or a game where McBride gets in that 7 to 9 point, range, right? It's happened before. Potentially tough defense in New England, so you could see that happen, right? So I don't think it was a death sentence for Alec by any means. Obviously, you wanted a touchdown or something more there, but looking at the other spots, there's plenty to make up to it. Thank God he didn't play Stafford. I don't know why he would with Josh Allen, but that was just a terrible game all around.
It was, and I guess the way I would prefer to frame this discussion, because we talked about both of these teams a little bit last week. I think we talked more about Doug's team, but at the same time, just so we can kind of keep these game discussions a little short, so we can do our predictions. But does Doug have a chance here?
I think yes, I do. I think it's going to be, I see this matchup going in either direction, in the sense that there are players on either side that could put up 5 points or 40 points, right? You're looking at Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels, both hugely boom, but also could bust, right? I think Josh Allen is kind of past that. But if you look at earlier in the season, he definitely had some down games. I think he's past it for sure. But it's possible that he walks away with that, 15-point game where, they feed James Cook. And then same thing with Josh Daniels or Jaden Daniels. You could see some down games, right? Coming out of a bye week, though, I doubt it. His rib injury is probably healed. But same thing, when you're looking at these other players, boom or bust players across the board. So I think it goes either way. So I think Doug has just as good of a shot of getting.
So, um, I mean, I definitely think Doug has a shot. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him. I envision the Detroit Buffalo game being a high scoring game. I, if I'm Doug, I'm worried about what I saw out of Buffalo's defense last week, and David Montgomery's ability to score. I think, Buffalo's defense did not look good. And if Detroit's in the red zone a lot, which they're a team that's going to be in the red zone a lot, he's going to have a lot of opportunities to score. Justin Jefferson and DJ Moore going at each other. You know, that Bears secondary is probably the best part of their team. At the same time, I have no faith in them. And Justin Jefferson is going to get his. So
Didn't we just give up like 40 something points last week.
Well, I mean, saying they're the best part of the Bears is saying like they're maybe a little below average across the league. So it's not.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a very
We
high.
literally just gave up to
38
38 points to a team that couldn't
Yeah.
score a single touchdown. They kicked 2 field goals the whole game. So, like, yeah, I think Justin Jefferson's going to be fine.
On the other side of it, though, for Doug, I mean, my concern with guys like I think Thielen has a good game. I like Thielen. I think McBride gets his. I mean, he's basically the only guy that Murray throws to with any consistency. Harrison, I really worry that this is a game that Arizona runs away with and then just puts the ball on the ground, and Murray isn't throwing very much. And if Murray isn't throwing very much, Harrison has, 5 targets maybe, and ends up being, just a dud
Yeah.
that 6.
I mean, he might get 5 targets anyway. I mean, that's just sort of the way that's been going with Harrison. So, and then, of course, you look at, Doug starting Quentin Johnson as flex. That's
Well, who else does he have?
in a 12-man league. He's got Quentin Johnson as flex in the playoffs. What are we all doing? How is this possible?
This is Doug. Don't feel bad. This is John just feeling salty about not being there. Quentin Johnson is a fine start for you,
No,
Doug.
are you kidding me?
He's fine.
What? I mean, what I would maybe do is start Ken Coleman. I mean, take the swing, right? Like before Coleman went out.
Ken Coleman.
Yeah, before he went out, like he was starting to get a little bit of run. Like, I would.
His first game back.
I mean,
Not
in a potential shootout, steal some points away from Josh Allen. Like,
if he had any faith in his boy, he'd start Justice Hill. That's who he'd start. He'd start Justice Hill. As a Ravens fan, that's what I'd do if I were Doug.
I'm a little surprised Spears isn't. So I guess even with
Christ almighty, Doug. Doug's got 3 Ravens on his bench.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 3 Ravens on his bench, and none of them. I mean, Deontay Johnson, is he even still on the team?
He's suspended.
He's suspended, right?
Yeah.
Boy.
I don't know. I mean, I'm surprised Ken's not in his ear talking up Coleman right now.
I think Doug's got a shot, but I'm probably going to end up. Let's not pick the game yet. Let's go to the next game, and we'll do our
side bet. I think Coleman outscores Quentin Johnson this week.
I'm not taking that bet. It's like, I mean, that's 2 guys that are both going to put up like 4.5 points. I'm not going to lose a side bet because somebody puts up 4.6.
All right.
All right. Let's go to Fitz and Steve. Steve rolling pretty much all season has been, I think, second or third in points all year long, is really crushing it. Fitz makes the playoffs. Uh, he's got Pacheco back. Hasn't done much. He's had some up and down weeks from across his roster, but I think the fact that everybody is that starting group is healthy and ready to go. I think Fitz has a shot here. Not a great one, but I do think he has a shot, and it's all going to come down to the Chase and the Chase Burrow mix.
Oh man, yeah, that's gonna be exciting. That will be exciting. Although they're playing Tennessee, who I don't know how much might end up not being much of a shootout, right? Which could work in Fitz's favor here with Chase Brown.
I mean,
in his
if
flex,
Higgins,
right? So
agreed. If Higgins picks up an early touchdown or two, if Higgins makes a couple big catches early, they might not be throwing the ball that much. At the same time, Cincinnati's defense is fucking awful. So
that's true.
I'm not gonna write off Tennessee.
Yeah, as long as Tony Pollard plays, which I heard he's going to, despite not. I don't think he practiced. Did he? Oh, he returned to practice in a limited fashion today. As long as he plays, I think that should be an interesting game to watch. I mean, it's in the early window, so I don't know how many of us will get to see it outside of red zone. But if it's a high-scoring game, then obviously we'll all get to get a peek at it. But that game will decide quite a bit of this matchup. So definitely would like to keep an eye on that one. And then looking at the Steve side, the Eagles Steelers game is going to be an interesting one to watch too. I was going to look and see how did they do. This is their first. Yeah, never mind. Eagles and Steelers matchup should probably intrastate matchup, right? I don't know if there is any sort of rivalry there as far as like intrastate sort of thing going on. Different conferences, but Steelers defense is tough, right?
Who could tell us? Cousin Jeff.
Cousin Jeff. Yeah. Well, short-lived 14th member of the league. Short-lived. Never saw a snap, but that could be good or bad. But
just one quick point I want to make on what you were just saying. The fact that these I mean, never mind. I don't want to make this point right now.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, like AJ Brown the whole week has, there's been reports that AJ Brown has been throwing a bit of tantrum behind the scenes. Have you heard this? That AJ Brown's been very upset about the number of targets he's gotten, that he feels like he's not involved in the offense. And so,
hurt him.
Which is true.
They're no longer friends.
He's hasn't had more than, he had 10 targets in the first week, then got injured, and then 9 targets in the game he came back. And since then, he's seen like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 targets, and only hit 100. He's only hit 100 yards 4 times this year, and has only caught 4 touchdown passes. And so, in the last 5 weeks, he's hit 100 yards twice and only has 1 touchdown. So, pretty minimal involvement there. Could be a squeaky wheel game, right? You could see AJ Brown get force-fed 10, 15 targets, or there's not much involvement still, and we could see another down week there, and which could hurt Steve, and Doug could end up sneaking one out. But it's also an embarrassment of riches on Steve's part to have AJ Brown in your flex and have Nico Collins and Chase as your two wide receivers.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. I'm not going to feel bad for Steve.
And on the other side, you got Garrett Wilson and Jameson Williams, who could have big games, but are more than likely to put up less points than their counterparts.
Yes and no. So Garrett Wilson, I think, is a guy who he's had a great season. I know the last 3 weeks that he's played have not been great. He's still wide receiver 8 on the year. He had a big week last week, and if you look at those 3 weeks that he was down, he still averaged across all 3 weeks 8 targets a game. He got 10 targets the game before last, 8 targets. So Garrett Wilson is going to get the ball. Even with Devontae, he's going to get the ball. And that Jets team is terrible. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. So I think, probably not against Jacksonville, who's also god fucking awful. But if Fitz can make it through this week, I see Garrett Wilson having some impact here in the playoffs. I like him as a guy to have in the playoffs.
Yeah, essentially. Let's see. I was going to see, when did Devontae Adams, he made his debut as a Jet, I think week 7 or week 8. And, since then.
I think it was before that. Right? Wasn't it week 7?
Week 7.
6?
7.
Week 7.
No, I think it was week 7. So since then, yeah, Garrett Wilson, since then he's only topped 100 yards twice. 100 yards twice and 2 touchdowns in 7 games. So
sure.
You're not looking at the number 1 wide receiver on the team, I would say. At least as far as target share goes and red zone goes, right? So you look at Devontae Adams, he's only had, since week 9, and it's probably been fully integrated in the offense, he's only had less than 11 targets once. So I think Garrett Wilson is probably cooling a little bit, but still potential for big play, obviously. And same thing with Jameson Williams. It feels like if it's a Jameson Williams game, he's getting 10 targets, 130 yards, a touchdown, So, and like we had just said in that Detroit Buffalo game, I think that could be the game of the week, right? We could be seeing a huge point total come out of that game. And so, similar to the last matchup we looked at, I think Fitz has an uphill battle ahead of him, but there's possibility here, and I think he's right now fielding the best lineup for that, right? Maybe the only position I could see being sort of a toss-up could be the tight end position, but it's such a crapshoot. You just don't know. Do you play Kraft or do you play Andrews? I think you go Andrews like he has, but you could play Kraft, but Andrews has scored a touchdown in almost every game since he's come back from injury. So
so is Tucker Kraft. So
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. So it's like it's kind of a toss up. Um, it's
I
really hard
mean,
to say. So
I yeah, I don't know. I guess my concern, just to briefly touch on that, my concern about Tucker or Andrews is I do think this game is going to be a blowout. Um, and I just don't know how much they're going to be getting
yeah.
the ball. He's going to be getting the ball. Um, all
The
right.
other the on the other side, real quick, what I think is pretty interesting is Steve's decision to play Tony Pollard or James Cook.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think you can sit AJ Brown and play both of those guys, but so I think you are deciding between Pollard and James Cook.
I
I don't think Warren's in the discussion at all. Or Najee really I
no,
think is still kind of the guy there, right?
yeah,
Um I mean Najee's had some pretty good
yeah,
games
that's pretty
lately.
good.
So it's like you could also look at Najee. I mean, especially if you think that that game is going to be a sort of ground and pound game between Barkley and Najee, maybe. I'm a little surprised that Pollard's in there right now, given that he's been nursing an injury, and you've got two healthy guys between Najee and James Cook. So
Yeah, I think if I mean my take would be I'm not in the playoffs, so take this for what it's worth.
oh,
I
maybe
think
that's
Steve is making the correct call if Pollard is truly healthy, and I think him returning to practice today is a good sign
how do you
for
think
that.
so?
That Cincinnati defense is terrible, and Tennessee is going to be able to score. I you know the Buffalo game, while I think it could be a shootout, Detroit's defense has played pretty well, and I mean, it could be with James Cook. You just don't know, right? Like it could be one of those games where Josh Allen runs for 75 or 80 yards, and James Cook doesn't really touch the ball that much, um, which seems to happen. Or it could be one of those games where James Cook is catching dump off after dump off. So I think the steadier option is Pollard, maybe Najee. Um, though I'm not really sure how I feel about the actual like Pittsburgh versus Philadelphia matchup and how that plays into it. I'd have to think more about that. But I think if Steve had any fucking balls, he'd play Jameson Winston.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, come on.
You got no balls, Steve. Play JMO. Put Winston in. Put him in there.
He's got no balls,
Just do it.
Cotton.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like James Cook. I mean, he's had one bad game in the last you know, like 6 games, and that was a snow game that Josh Allen had, an incredible game. And then the other one was against Miami in week 9, which I can't remember if that was a snowy game in Buffalo, but I'm looking at James Cook and saying this guy is he could be a good floor play, but anyway, we can move on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, and I think
Crapshoot. Good luck.
yeah.
Good luck.
Okay.
No stress over here, Mike. No stress.
Nope. None at all.
We don't have these decisions to make. We're
All
all good.
Yep.
We
all right.
embody Chicago sports, baby.
That's right.
9 to
Welcome to the
5.
bottom.
9 to 5. We ain't working overtime. We we do our 40-hour work week and then we clock out.
That's right.
Uh-uh.
That's what
Regular
I'm.
season ends. We're not doing any extra. You got what you paid for.
Yeah, I paid for 14 weeks. All right. Let's pick our and I'll write this down. But I do want us to pick our playoff outcomes. There's been only one game that's had any scoring at this point, so I think we're good. John, you want to go first or second? We'll pick the first round, and then we'll pick the second one.
So are we taking different teams then? So if you get first pick in one matchup, then you get second pick in the next matchup? Is that how we're doing this?
No. We're just picking the winners, and we don't have to take different teams. We can take the same teams.
All right. I like Theo's dad and in the matchup against Doug. No offense, Doug. I think I gotta go with that one.
Okay. I'll take. I'm going to take Alec as well. I've been cheering for Alec all year. I'm going to take Alec as well.
Me too. Yeah, look at that matchup. I love the Jerry Judy play too. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. All right. Next game. Who are you taking? Fitz versus Steve?
Oh man. I don't like always picking the favorite, but I see Steve kind of putting it all together and having a 150-point game. I do. And I see the dawn rising on the night country.
I'm going with Fitz. I'm doing it.
Really?
I think as much as I just talked up Steve's team to an extent, I think Fitz has a shot in this game. I like the direction in which his team is heading, and I think some of those guys pop off this week. And Steve, I mean, he took Tony Pollard from me. He took Debo from me. Neither of them have been all that great for him. I think he's going to need. I think he's going to need big games from Mixon and Chase and Nico to win. But he's probably going to get those. But I don't know. My gut is telling me that Wilson has a big week and that Pacheco has a big week, and I gotta ride with it for Fitz's sake. So I'm taking Fitz.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad call by any means. I mean, Fitz has been putting up points. I think he's had 105+ points in 6 of the last 8 weeks. So I think there's money to be made there.
For sure.
And then the winners go on and play. How's the bracket look? Let's just take a look at that real quick.
So Ken will play the winner of Steve/Fitz, and the winner of Doug/Alec will play Jake.
Yeah. Wow. Could be some pretty interesting matchups. Either way, I think there'll be very interesting matchups. Whoever advances. I'm excited to see who does that, and then I'm very excited to take a look at Ken's team and Jake's team next week.
Let's pick the whole playoffs. Let's see how far we can go.
Oh my gosh!
Or you don't want to do that yet?
No, we can and then revise next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Can we see the matchups for next week? If we,
I mean, this is more of a seat of your pants type thing.
okay. All right. Uh, all right. So I'm going Steve advancing against Ken.
Mhm.
And then if I'm going to choose that matchup,
Mhm.
let me take a look at Ken's team real quick. Um, I'm going Steve. I'm going Steve.
Oh boy! All right,
Yeah.
Steve wins
Yeah.
out. I like it. I have in that matchup, I would have Ken versus Fitz, two Ithaca boys going at it. I got to take Ken though. I think Ken's got the stronger team.
Really? Really?
Yep. Um,
Interesting. Yeah, I
just
mean,
like just
yeah.
going with my gut here. Uh, okay, Jake versus we both have Alec, so Jake versus Alec.
That I think could be what, some call like the matchup, right? Like the matchup. Um, which I think there's going to be a great championship matchup anyway, regardless, but I think this could be like the matchup. Um, I think I'd have to go Jake in this one. Unless he tinkers too much. I mean, he has some really great options on his team, but I think I would go Jake for the fact that he has Saquon Barkley alone.
So here I've got a question for you,
Mhm.
and we can dive into this more next week. Um, so I'll give you some time to think about it. Who is Jake's tight end?
Yeah, I was just looking at that. He's
I don't think he has one.
he does
Um,
not have one, and I don't think he's like
both of his guys are
Ingram
out
went
for
onto
the season.
IR, Hill went to
So did
IR.
Taysom Hill.
Yeah,
So I'm
looking at
taking. So you took Jake, right?
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
taking. I'm
yeah.
taking Alec. I'm taking Alec. I feel like I got to do it.
I like it. I mean, you're looking at the tight end landscape right now. Waiver wire. I mean, there's some guys. I mean, Ferguson's on the wire.
We'll dive.
Ferguson's
We'll dive.
there,
We'll
which is
dive
not
more
very
into that.
good. But
We'll dive more into that next week. All right, championship, John. Uh, you would have Jake versus Steve. Um,
yeah,
who are you
yeah,
picking?
that would be a phenomenal championship to watch. Jackson versus Hurts. A couple good running backs against each other, and then premier wide receivers. Just you know, I'm going Steve. I'm going Steve all the way. I think Steve's going to be the dark horse of this season. He's been kind of quiet, flying under Jake's wing, but he's been putting together his team for the last 4 years. Okay, he has been tinkering, trading, making sure he gets his guys. I think this is his year that he has finally put it together. The last year of Jamar Chase on his under contract.
Mhm.
I think he does it. I think he does it.
I have Ken versus Alec, and I'm rolling with Alec.
Nice.
I think Alec. It's the year of Theo, and I think that pays bounty. So
I
uh,
mean, two of the last 3 years, if Alec wins, two of the last 3 years, the winner has had a newborn.
Is that a veiled shot of my son for not winning me the championship when he was the year he was born?
It's more of a shot at you for failing your son, but
Okay. All right. On that note, anything else?
no,
I think
I'm excited to revise my predictions next week.
yes. We'll
Who
keep
I've
it
chosen
rolling. We'll
yet
keep it rolling.
again loses, because that's been the theme of this year, is that I have gotten every prediction wrong. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Steve, for dooming your playoffs.
All right. For John, for Brother John, this has been the RTF Show.
You will not be able to see Cotton.